If you could strip life down to its bare essentials, what would be left? What is the absolute minimum instruction set needed for something to actually be alive? For the longest time, that was a question for philosophy class. But then a group of scientists decided they were going to find the answer, not in a textbook, but in a lab.
And this question, it's not just about idle curiosity. It gets to the very core of what life even is. To find out, scientists took on one of the most ambitious projects you can imagine, to build a living organism from the ground up, with the smallest possible genetic instruction book. So, who took on this crazy challenge? Well, at the forefront were researchers at the J. Craig Venter Institute, and their goal was audacious. They weren't just trying to understand life, they were trying to write it.
And as the lead scientist J. Craig Venter put it himself, this wasn't some weekend project. This was a 20-year odyssey into the very code of life. A journey that was only possible because of a revolutionary new field.
And that field is synthetic biology. The easiest way to think about it is biology crashing right into engineering. So instead of just studying the life that's already here, scientists can now design and build completely new biological parts, little devices, even whole organisms. We've moved from just reading the genetic code to actually writing it.
And that right there is the key. The team started to treat an organism's genome, its complete set of DNA, not as some kind of sacred, untouchable text, but as software, literally genetic software that you can edit, debug, and ultimately shrink down to its absolute minimum.
This whole quest didn't happen overnight, of course. It had some really clear milestones. It all kicked off back in 1995, when they sequenced the simplest little bacterium out there. And that's what sparked the big idea. By 2010, they did something that sounded like science fiction. They created the first cell ever to be run by a completely man-made genome. But that was really just a copy of a natural bug. The real goal came in 2016, creating a truly minimal synthetic cell.
So how on earth did they actually pull this off? Well, they used this relentless cycle: design, build, test. First, on a computer, they design a smaller genome, basically just hitting delete on any genes they thought the cell could live without. Then, they would literally build that DNA sequence from chemicals in a bottle. And finally, the moment of truth. They transplant that synthetic DNA into a host cell to see if it would boot up and actually come to life. And they just did this over and over and over again.
After years of this cycle, of so many failures, and then these amazing breakthroughs, they did it. They actually did it. They had created the very first organism on this planet to be run by a minimal, computer-designed genome.
Just look at the numbers here. It's pretty wild. That first synthetic cell from 2010 had over 1 million DNA letters and 901 genes. But their new minimal cell? They'd slashed the genome by almost half. Only 531,000 base pairs and just 473 genes. That's smaller than any self-replicating cell ever found in nature.
And this is it. This is what it looks like. Now, I know it might not look like much, but what you are looking at is one of the most profound scientific achievements of our time. It's a cluster of tiny little spheres, and every single one of them is a living thing whose parent was a computer file. But this incredible triumph led them straight to a very, very humbling discovery.
You see, in trying to find the bare essentials of life, what they really found was the sheer scale of our own ignorance. The answer to their big question came with an even bigger question mark attached. It all boiled down to a single number, 149. So what is that? 149 is the number of genes that are essential for this thing to live. Absolutely required, but for which we have no clue what they do. They are complete and utter mysteries. The cell dies without them, and we have no idea why.
This chart really puts it into perspective, right? Just look at that huge slice of the pie. Nearly a third of the absolute essential toolkit for life. The stuff this cell absolutely cannot live without is what some scientists are now calling biological dark matter.
And as Venter himself put it, finding this out was one of the most important things that came out of the whole project. In their epic quest to know everything about life's simplest form, they ended up proving just how little we actually know. So this whole incredible success story, it ends on this note of profound humility, doesn't it? And that kind of forces us to take a step back from the science and ask some much bigger, more philosophical questions about what life even is.
So what did they really make here? Is it a living machine? some scientists now look at nature and see this sort of messy, imperfect machine that we can finally go in and fix, improve, and totally redesign. But then others say, hold on, we're not creating life from scratch. They argue we're just radically reshuffling and reprogramming the parts that life already gave us.
And this gets us right to the heart of it, doesn't it? When the blueprint for a living organism exists as ones and zeros on a server, and you can email that code, download it, and then boot it up into a living dividing cell, I mean, where is the line between biology and technology anymore? Has it just vanished?
At the end of the day, this single experiment just shakes up everything. We thought we were getting closer to understanding the essential functions of life, only to find out a third of them are a total mystery. It completely blurs that line between what's natural and what's artificial, which forces us to question the very definition of life. And it shows us that our own ingenuity has brought us to the edge of a brand new, vast unknown.
So the mission to find a simple answer by building the simplest possible cell, well, it did the exact opposite. It revealed a reality that is so much more complex and honestly so much more fascinating than we ever could have imagined.
And that leaves us with this one last thing to chew on. For thousands of years, we've been reading the Book of Life, a book written by evolution. But now we've shown that we can write in that book too. And if the instruction book for life can be written, what does that say about the author?